Imagine the scene. I stood there at the altar, in a rented suit, waiting for the woman of my life to walk up to me. But instead of my bride, it was her mother who appeared, whispering in my ear, "She's not coming. She said you're too poor for the family's standards." At that moment, I wanted the earth to swallow me. But 3 days later, when my $50 million trust fund matured, the same woman who publicly humiliated me was at my door, begging for forgiveness. Want to know how this sweet revenge happened? Then subscribe to the channel and hit the bell because this story will blow your mind. But before I continue telling my story and how it all happened, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear where you're from. My name is Daniel. I'm 28 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew the woman I was going to marry perfectly. Sophia and I had been dating for 4 years. She knew my entire life, that I worked as a math teacher at a public school, that I lived in a simple 2-bedroom apartment, that my car was a 2015 Civic, and that I saved every penny for our wedding. What Sophia didn't know, because my grandfather made me swear not to tell anyone, was about the trust fund he had created for me when I was born. Grandpa Arthur was a successful businessman, but also extremely wise. He believed that easy money in youth spoiled people's character. So he set a condition. I could only access the inheritance on my 29th birthday. "Danny," he used to say, "I want you to learn the value of hard work, humility, and discover who truly loves you for who you are, not what you have." All these years, I kept the secret religiously. I worked, paid my bills, and lived a simple, honest life. Sophia seemed to love this version of me. She said I was different from other men, that my simplicity enchanted her. We planned a modest wedding, within my teaching budget. Everything seemed perfect until that Saturday in September that changed my life forever. The day I discovered the true character of the woman I loved, and she discovered, too late, who I really was. It was September 15th, a sunny Saturday. I woke up at 6 in the morning with that feeling of butterflies in my stomach that every groom feels. After 4 years of dating, I was finally going to marry Sophia. I took a long shower, shaved carefully, and put on the suit I'd rented from the shop downtown. The ceremony venue was the church where I grew up, simple but cozy. It had a capacity of 100, perfect for our guests. I arrived 2 hours early, nervous but happy. My mother cried with emotion as she adjusted my tie for the 10th time. My father, always the calm one, patted me on the shoulder, assuring me that everything would be fine. Guests began arriving. Friends from the school where I taught, some cousins, neighbors who had watched me grow up. On Sophia's side, the whole family was present. Her parents, siblings, uncles, and cousins. They were always polite to me, but I noticed a certain distance, as if I wasn't quite what they expected for their daughter. Sophia's father, Mr. Roberto, ran a successful import and export business. The family lived in a large house in an upscale neighborhood. Sophia attended private school her entire life and graduated with a degree in business administration from an expensive private university. Yet, when we met at a party with mutual friends, he seemed oblivious to these differences. 15 minutes before the ceremony began, the priest came to tell me the bride was late. "Calm down, son," he said with a smile. "Brides are always a little late." Another 15 minutes passed. I broke out in a cold sweat beneath my suit. The guests whispered to each other, checking their watches. It was then that I saw Donna Marcia, Sophia's mother, entering the church with an expression I'll never forget. She walked straight toward me, her steps firm but her face visibly embarrassed. When she got close, she motioned for me to bend down, as if she were about to tell me a secret. "Daniel," she whispered in my ear, "Sophia isn't coming. She said you're too poor for our family's standards. She said you can't marry someone who will keep you in a mediocre life." Her words echoed in my head like a painful echo. I felt my legs weaken. The silence in the church was deafening. 100 people stared at me with pity, waiting for my reaction. My mother began to cry. My father clenched his fists. I stood there, standing at the altar, feeling the world crash down on me. I don't know how I managed to maintain my composure in that moment. I felt all those 100 people looking at me with pity, whispering among themselves, "Poor Daniel. How could she do this to him? How humiliating." That was exactly what I was feeling. A deep, painful humiliation that seemed to tear at my soul. Donna Marcia was still beside me, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. She continued whispering. "She caught a flight to Miami this morning. She said she needs some time to think about her life. that she doesn't want to settle down yet. Each word was like a knife. 4 years of relationship thrown away like that, without even a conversation. The priest approached and gently suggested I say something to the guests. I took the microphone with trembling hands. Everyone, my voice cracked. Unfortunately, the ceremony won't take place today. Sophia has decided she no longer wants to marry me. A murmur ran through the entire church. My mother stood up from the front row and came to hug me, crying. "My son, you deserve better than this," she whispered in my ear. But at that moment I couldn't think of anything but the pain in my chest. It was as if someone had ripped out my heart and stomped on it in front of me. The guests began to rise, some coming to greet me with words of support, others just shaking their heads in disapproval. I remember hearing someone comment, "I always knew that girl was a gold digger." I dismissed it at the time, but that phrase echoed in my head. Sophia's family quickly left the church, avoiding eye contact with me. Only her younger brother, Lucas, came up to me and apologized. "Man, I didn't know she was going to do that. It's so wrong," he said, genuinely embarrassed. At least someone in her family had some decency. We spent the rest of the day dismantling the decorations I'd so painstakingly paid for. The flowers that cost $800. The sound system I'd rented for $500. The simple buffet already prepared for the party. Everything was falling apart. My friends helped me silently, respecting my grief. Arriving home that night, I sat on my bed clutching the engagement ring that had cost me 3 months' salary. I had saved so much for it, researched countless jewelry stores until I found something beautiful that fit my budget. Now it was nothing more than a painful reminder of the greatest humiliation of my life. The next 3 days were the worst of my life. I couldn't eat, sleep, or think about anything other than the humiliation I'd endured. I called the school and told them I wouldn't be working on Monday. I simply couldn't emotionally stand in front of a classroom and pretend everything was fine. Sophia wouldn't respond to my messages or answer my calls. I tried to reach her dozens of times, needing a decent explanation, closure. How could someone date someone for 4 years and then just leave them at the altar without even a conversation? It didn't make sense to me. On Monday, I finally got to talk to Sophia's friend, Marina, who told me the truth. "Daniel, she's been complaining for months that you lack ambition, that you settle for less. She said she met a businessman in Miami through a friend, and that he did have the standard of living she'd always dreamed of. It was like being punched in the gut," Marina continued. "She said you'd never be able to give her the life she deserved. A big house, the latest cars, international travel, designer clothes. She said if she married you, she'd be stuck in a mediocre life, forever." Each word hurt more than the last. I truly believed Sophia loved me for who I was, not for what I had. On Tuesday, I received a message from Sophia herself, brief and cold. "Daniel, I'm sorry I did it this way, but it was the only way. You're a nice guy, but we have no future together. You want a simple life, and I want more than that. I hope you find someone who's content with what you can offer." Reading that completely destroyed me. I spent those 3 days drinking beer on the couch, watching whatever TV I could to take my mind off things. My parents called every 2 hours to check on me. My mother insisted I go to their house for dinner, but I didn't have the courage to leave the house. I was sure everyone on the street was looking at me with pity. The pain wasn't just emotional, it was physical too. I felt a constant tightness in my chest, as if someone were crushing my heart with their hands. I couldn't understand how someone who claimed to love me so much could hurt me like this. 4 years together. Didn't they mean anything? Wednesday night, I looked at the calendar on the fridge and saw that the next day, September 18th, was my 29th birthday. For the first time in 3 days, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I would finally find out if all this pain was worth it. I woke up on Thursday, September 18th, with a strange feeling. It was my 29th birthday, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't excited about the occasion. Usually, my mom called early to congratulate me singing "Happy Birthday" off-key, but this time I left my phone on silent. I wasn't in the mood for celebration. At 9 in the morning, the doorbell rang. It was Dr. Martinez, the family lawyer, a man in his 60s who had known my grandfather for decades. He carried a brown leather briefcase and had a solemn expression on his face. "Daniel," he said when I opened the door, "the day has come. Your grandfather left specific instructions for me to personally deliver this to you on your 29th birthday." We sat at the kitchen table, and he opened the folder. He took out several documents, bank statements, and a handwritten letter from my grandfather. Your grandfather Arthur created a trust fund for you when you were born, Daniel. Over the past 29 years, the money has been invested and reinvested. Today, that fund is worth exactly $52.7 million. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. $52.7 million? I repeated incredulously. Dr. Martinez smiled and nodded. Your grandfather was a very intelligent man, Daniel. He knew that if you'd known about this money when you were young, you might not have become the man of integrity you are today. He wanted you to learn the value of hard work, humility, and character. He showed me the statements. There were investments in stocks, real estate funds, government bonds, and international companies, all managed by a top-tier wealth management firm. The money had grown exponentially over the years. Starting today, Dr. E. Martinez continued, you have full access to this wealth. You can do whatever you want with it. I took my grandfather's handwritten letter with trembling hands. My dear Daniel, it began, if you're reading this, it means you've turned 29, and I'm probably no longer with you. I hope these years have taught you to be a man of value, character, humility, and hard work. The money I'm leaving you isn't for you to flaunt or waste. It's for you to use wisely, help those in need, and live a dignified life. But most of all, I hope it helps you discover the people who truly love you for who you are, not for what you have. Use this money to be happy, my grandson. With eternal love, Grandpa Arthur. When I finished reading, I was crying. Not from sadness, but from a mixture of emotions I couldn't even describe. Relief, gratitude, love for my grandfather, and a strange sense of justice. For the next 2 weeks, I kept my discovery completely secret. I didn't tell anyone, not even my parents. I wanted to process the information alone and plan my next steps calmly. Dr. Martinez advised me not to make hasty decisions and to think carefully about how I wanted to use the wealth. The first thing I did was go back to work. My fellow teachers were incredibly welcoming, asking how I was doing after what happened. I pretended I was fine, but in reality, I was undergoing a profound internal transformation. With each passing day, I understood my grandfather's wisdom better. I started to see people differently, who really cared about me, who supported me through the worst times. My mother, who called every day to check on me. My father, who came home several times just to keep me company. My teacher friends, who covered for me at work when I wasn't feeling well. At the end of September, I decided to make some subtle changes in my life. I bought a new car, but nothing too flashy, a 2023 Honda Accord. I moved to a better apartment in a quieter, but still far from ostentatious neighborhood. I wanted to test how people would react to these small improvements. It was interesting to observe. Some colleagues commented, "Wow, Daniel, what a nice car. How did you afford it?" I simply replied that I had saved a lot and secured a good mortgage. Others asked about the new apartment. "Oh, I found a good deal," I replied vaguely. One thing that struck me was how some people changed their treatment of me. Colleagues who previously barely greeted me now came over to chat. Neighbors who had never paid me any attention were suddenly friendlier. Even the cashier at the bakery where I bought bread started smiling more when she saw me. This made me think deeply about human nature. How people judge others by their appearance, not by who they really are. For 4 years, Sophia lived with me, thinking she knew my whole story. She fell in love with the person I was, but fell out of love with what I appeared to have. At the end of September, I received an unexpected call. It was Lucas, Sophia's brother. "Daniel," he said, "I need to tell you something. Sophia is back from Miami. Things didn't work out the way she'd hoped. That businessman was married and was just stringing her along. Now she regrets everything she did and wants to talk to you." I hung up the phone without answering. I wasn't angry. I felt sorry for her. I felt sorry for someone who had lost something real in pursuit of something false. In early October, 3 weeks after my discovery, Sophia showed up at the school where I worked. It was late afternoon, and I was leaving for home when I saw her leaning against my new car. She looked different, thinner, with a tired expression I'd never seen before. When she saw me approaching, she tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Daniel," she said hesitantly. "We need to talk." I stopped a few feet away, crossed my arms, and waited for her to continue. I wasn't going to make this easy for her after everything she'd put me through. "Can I get in your car?" she asked. "It's better if we talk here," I replied coolly. She took a deep breath and began to speak in a rush. "Daniel, I know I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was confused, scared by the idea of marriage, and I ended up making the worst decision possible. That guy from Miami was a liar. He was just stringing me along. Now I understand that you were always the man of my life." I listened silently, watching every expression on her face. This was the same person who'd left me at the altar, who'd told me I was too poor for her standards. Now she was here, begging for a second chance. "Sophia," she said calmly, "you humiliated me in front of 100 people. You said I could never give you the life you deserved. What's changed?" She started to cry. "I was wrong, completely wrong. You've always been more of a man than any of those rich guys I've met. They only want one thing, Daniel. You respected me. You truly loved me. I was an idiot for not appreciating that." Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. "Besides," she continued, "I see you're much better now. New car, new apartment. Maybe we can start over, build a life together." It was then that I completely understood her move. She had come back not because she recognized my value as a person, but because she realized my financial situation had improved. "Sophia," I replied, with a calmness that surprised me, "thank you for clarifying things. Now, I understand completely who you really are." I got in the car, started the engine, and rolled down the window. "Oh, and just so you know, I've always been rich. I just didn't like to flaunt it. Good luck in life." The expression on her face when she said this was priceless, a mixture of shock, despair, and deep regret. She drove off slowly, checking her rearview mirror. She stood there in the parking lot for several minutes, probably trying to process what she'd just heard. Over the next few weeks, Sophia tried everything to win me back. Constant calls that I didn't answer, long messages asking for forgiveness that I didn't reply to, even flowers being delivered to the school where I worked. She was desperate, and I confess I felt a certain satisfaction watching her chase after something I'd thrown away. One day she showed up at my parents' house during Sunday lunch. My mother, always polite, greeted her, but with a coldness that cut through the air. "Donna Maria," Sophia said through tears, "you've always treated me like a daughter. Daniel doesn't even want to talk to me, but I need him to know that I made the biggest mistake of my life." My mother, who never minced her words, replied, "Daughter, you hurt my son in a way he never deserved. You dated for 4 years, and you left him at the altar, calling him poor. Now that you see he has better conditions, you want to get back together. That's not love, it's self-interest." Sophia left the room crying even more. The final straw was when she showed up at my apartment on a Friday night. She discovered my new address and was waiting in the lobby when I arrived. "Daniel, please just give me a chance to explain everything," she begged. The doorman looked embarrassed. I decided to go upstairs with her to settle the matter once and for all. In the elevator, she kept saying, "I know you have money now, but that's not why I want to come back. It's because I realize I've always truly loved you." When we entered the apartment, she was impressed by the decor and the view. I sat on the couch and let her say whatever she wanted. She cried, humbled herself, and promised she had changed, that she now understood what truly mattered in life. When she finished, I got up and went to the safe I had installed in the room. I came back with some documents. "Sophia," he said, showing her the papers, "this trust fund has been there since the day I was born. I always knew I would receive this inheritance at 29. During our 4 years of dating, I had $52 million waiting for me, and you never knew." Her face went pale. "The money has always been there," I continued. "The difference is that now I can use it. But do you know what the greatest gift my grandfather gave me was? It wasn't the money. It was the opportunity to discover who truly loves me for who I am. And you, Sophia, failed that test spectacularly." She was silent for a few minutes, processing this information. Then she whispered, "So you were always rich and let me believe you were poor?" "No," I replied. "I let you know who I really am." 3 months have passed since that terrible day at the altar. Today, I can say it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Sophia did me the greatest favor of my life by revealing her true character before it was too late. Imagine if I had discovered this after I was married, perhaps with children. I use my money wisely, just as my grandfather wanted. I help my family, donate to the school where I work, and invest in social projects. I continued teaching because I love teaching, but now I can do it out of passion, not necessity. The simple life I led before wasn't for lack of options. It was by choice. As for Sophia, I heard she's dating another businessman. I sincerely hope she's happy and learned something from all of this. I don't hold any grudges against her, just pity for someone who confuses love with a bank account. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where you discovered someone's true character? I love reading about your experiences.